Flynn Lane northbound 6 mile. If Jeff wants to go ahead with.
Oh, you should.
We have
Oh,
four
there,
right
oh, there's,
here.
oh, okay, yeah, there's a couple chairs over here yet.
We got some in the back room.
Would you like me to come up?
Yes.
front, please? Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Jeff Ebert with the Montana Department of Transportation out of Butte. We're here today to talk a little bit about.
Can you talk a little louder?
Sure. We're here to talk about the Toston Bridge Structures project, and we'd like to provide some information and update some information to the project schedule, the way we've got it right now. Right now, the Department of Transportation is working on right-of-way and right-of-way acquisition to finish up the acquisition of projects for the structures project. They began in October of 2017, and we're still working on those right-of-way acquisitions. We're finalizing the construction drawings for the project, and we're also relocating the utilities for the project. Right now, the project is ready for construction, or is to be planned for construction in the 2019 construction season. The department will open bids November 15th of 2018, and will award a contract to the lowest responsible bidder effective roughly 6 weeks after that date, with construction to start as soon as the weather allows that in probably around April of 2019. The project is scheduled to be built in phases. The intent is to start construction with the Montana Rail Link, Missouri River Bridges. Will provide a detour road into Toston from the north. We'll build roadway embankments outside of the existing highway limits, and then we'll start to widen the ends of the project. We'll put traffic on the new alignment. That will be done in the second year of the project, and then in the last year. And really, a lot of it depends on how fast the contractor works. That they'll remove the existing bridges after the new bridges are built. Roughly speaking, we'll build one half of the roadway, and then we'll come back in and build the other half of the roadway the following construction season, so that the ability to plow snow and whatnot will not be hampered during that 2-year construction time frame. The last year, or the third year of the project will involve some minor chip seal work and final pavement markings and what have you. But for all intents and purposes, the project will be done in 2 years, and then we'll come back in that third year and finish up final construction. During the construction of the project, we will be providing public notice to the affected landowners and also to the traveling public that use that roadway. We'll also be coordinating with emergency services and also with the school district. We'll probably have some public notices and media outreach. There'll be variable message signs that will go up and provide information as needed. And then we'll also have websites set up for project updates. The other issue that we wanted to talk about today is the potential for looking at a relocation of Flynn Lane. Part of the original construction project for the Tossin structures initially said that we would not need to, that we would do, and I don't know if you've got maps of this, but we do, looking at the intersection of 6 Mile Road. This will be a connection of Flynn Lane. Right now there's some usage of that roadway for the extension of Flynn Lane. One of the proposal that is before us right now is where we would actually close the portion of Flynn Lane from 6 Mile Road back to a connection that is proposed by Mr. Flynn, associated with the extension of Flynn Lane going in a southerly direction through his home and ranch party there. The intent is to look at the connection to US 287 that will also go in and tie into an existing approach on the west side of the highway, and then removal of that extension from Franklin or from 6 Mile Road to that connection. I don't, like I say, I don't know if that's plain as day or night, but that's kind of our proposal. We have Phil Forbes with Morrison Merrily. They're doing the engineering for the project, and I guess I'd like to take it, turn it over to him and speak about more of the detailed engineering associated with the project. Unless there's any questions that I would need to answer prior to that to that presentation.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Members of the commission, first of all, let me apologize for being late. No excuse for that, I'm sorry. Jeff did my name is Phil Forbes. I work with Morrison Merrily, so I've been the project manager on this project since its inception. And I thought it would be helpful to go back through a little bit of the history of the project. This particular board, commissioners, is that first page there you have in front of us. At the initiation of the project, we did a traffic study. We just wanted to get out there and get a feel for the existing conditions and make some identify some recommendations for how to improve the safety along the corridor. And one of the recommendations coming out of that 2014 report was based on our observation that between Flynn Lane and 6 Mile Road, there was at least better than a 2-track road, but a road in there. And, you know, I think its purpose and its utility was fairly obvious. We thought with not too much expense, we could accomplish a couple of things. One, we could make some changes to the current intersection of Flynn Lane and the highway, which is a real acute angle. And the other thing that we could do was potentially keep agricultural traffic off the highway. So that was one of the recommendations in the study, and I think we have pretty consistently shown this alignment, which on your mapping there is called the planned realignment for Flynn Lane. We've shown that pretty consistently in our public meetings. After we got into the project, or even before that, then the same as the projects that MDT has done on both sides of this 3.5 mile segment, the Transportation Commission identified this as a limited access control facility. And the purpose there is to limit the number of accesses to the highway, but still have good individual access to the highway. But the real point is to improve the safety again. So as part of the limited access control plan for the project, we were have proposed to close the existing intersection of Flynn Lane with the highway, and then the approach that lies on the immediate south side of Warren Flynn's property. We would close that, but perpetuate an approach on the north side of Flynn Lane, or Flynn's residence, that aligns with an approach across the railroad tracks. And then in closing this one, if we were to install the planned realignment, then folks could come out to 6 Mile and get on the highway there. So closing those two existing approaches was kind of fundamental to it. After we got our mapping for the project back, we found out that the existing frontage road, if you will, only about 6 feet of that is actually in public right-of-way. The rest of it is on private property. We are also, well, it would be proposed, and this is more for MDT's presentation, but those county roads that we are realigning or proposing to realign with the project would be subject in an easement to the county for future maintenance and ownership of the realigned properties. So during right-of-way negotiations, well, forgive me. Also at the last public meeting, again, we were going to perpetuate an approach across from the existing approach of the railroad. There's one there today. We were going to perpetuate that. And the proposal had been discussed to extend that at some point over to Flynn Lane. And we showed that in one of our slides during the last public meeting. We showed this proposed, or the planned realignment, as well as a future extension over to Flynn Lane, and identified that as not a part of this project. And I understand during right-of-way negotiations, there was, if you will, a counter proposal to the planned realignment, and that would be to turn this approach on the north side of Warren Flynn's residence into the realignment of Flynn Lane in this area. Now, from my perspective as one of the design engineers, we would still meet our limited access control goal. We would still be able to close the existing Flynn Lane approach. We'd still be able to close the private approach on the south side of the Flynn residence. But instead of realigning Flynn Lane down here on the south side, what would be proposed is to put a curve in Flynn Lane, peel it out, and bring it out to this existing approach, meeting county minimum standards. In terms of traffic safety, the total length between intersections between 6 Mile Road and this proposed extension or realignment of Flynn Lane would be about 3,400 feet. So there's good separation between the intersections. It's, I'm sure, impossible to see in the back of the room, but I did try to put some lengths of all of these segments together on that exhibit map. The original or planned realignment of Flynn Lane is about a little less than 1,200 feet long. The proposed realignment of Flynn Lane is about 900 feet long, and the segment in between those two is about 2,500, or about a half a mile. I think the one other thing that we wanted to be sure was a part of this presentation is that any realignment of Flynn Lane, whether it's the planned or the proposed realignment, would be included in the department's project. So it would be built, you know, by their contractor, meeting their quality control, quality assurance, and standard specification requirements. If the proposed realignment were to be accepted and approved, the fate of what happens to Flynn Lane, the existing improvements, is clearly within the purview of the commission. So whether you were to abandon it or whatever you do with that, that would of course be your purview. I would say that the department's approach to it would be to only obliterate as little of it as possible. In other words, you probably just make this reconnection, allow access to the Flynn residents, and then kind of walk away from it. Again, we would eliminate this intersection, the acute angle intersection with the highway down here. So that might be the full limits of the obliteration should you move forward with the proposed realignment. And I think from a technical standpoint, that's our perspective on the project. I'd like to stop now and ask if there are any questions from the commission. Any of that? Okay.
What was the reason why you originally wanted to deal with that acute angle access? Is there a safety issue there?
Well, I think just in general, this intersection?
Yeah.
Okay, just in general, it's a site issue. We'd like to have the approach road be as close to 90 degrees as possible so that you can see both ways as a driver. Someone in a truck, if they were going south and got to here, you know, they just have to kind of hook so they can be sure and see traffic off to their right. That's the issue. I guess if there aren't any further questions in that regard, I'd like to turn it back over to Jeff or someone else from the department. Based on Jeff's introduction, I think the question today is whether or not the proposed realignment would be acceptable to the county. So if there aren't any questions, I'll sit back down. Hopefully that'll stay there.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I guess to summarize or to beg the question, this proposal that has come up has been as a result of right-of-way negotiations for the project. It's been proposed by Mr. Flynn that he would like to be able to do this, and we would ask that the commission consider it and look at it. There has been 3 additional proposals that was presented by the county. I personally didn't see them until 7:30 this morning when I came to work, so I apologize for not being totally up to speed on that proposal and looking at. The concern is the ability to make a north-south connection for those that use 6 Mile Road to then proceed north into Townsend without having to get out onto the highway. I think that's a concern with this, the proposal that is before you. It's my understanding that and I had a short conversation with Mr. Flynn prior to this proposal, or during this negotiations, and he said that he would be amenable to allowing farming equipment and horse trailers and whatnot to utilize the existing Flynn Road, but he wanted that the bulk of the public traffic to be not able to use that road in the future. And I don't know if Mr. Flynn wants to talk about that, or if it's something that we can provide some additional information. It's also my understanding that roadway is still in private. I think Mr. Forbes did indicate that is in private ownership at this time, and part of that is owned by, a majority of that road is owned by Mr. Flynn. So I don't know.
Well, Warren Flynn, real quick, we've been over this before many times, but my intent is to keep a farm ranch access road to connect our place in 6 Mile, mainly across my own private property. Franklin and I have been over this numerous times. It will be accessible for any person that needs to use it to stay off the highway. Farm equipment, horse trailers. Keep in mind that 95% of the farm use and horse trailer use is from our operation. However, anybody, you see these people in the room, everybody's in support of this. These are the farmers and the ranchers affected by this, by the way. You see landowners here from 6 Mile. You see the bulk of the ownership of the land on Flynn Lane and 6 Mile sitting in this room. You see the cattle operations sitting in this room, and you see the support of all these people here. So there has never been a legal connection between Flynn Lane and 6 Mile. It's never been an issue until all of a sudden now it is. However, nothing's gonna change. There will still be farm access from Flynn Lane to 6 Mile for anyone that wants to use it. I will grant that. I will grant it in writing any way you want it. 99% of the people that use Flynn Lane are just trying to get to the highway. North of the ranch will be a faster way for them to get to the highway. And also what has been mentioned so far is that most of the farm equipment use coming down Flynn Lane needs to cross the railroad track to get to the farm across. That'd be Charlie, that'd be Joe Nelson, that'd be myself. Right now we get on the highway, we go down the highway 200 yards, we stop traffic, we turn off at the railroad. The proposed new road will put us at a 90-degree angle to the highway. We go straight across. There's nothing safer than that. We're looking at 900 feet of road versus 1,100 feet of road. You're looking at not having to buy a couple acres of property from me. So the state is saving money in this process. Personally, I can't see what all the issues are about. You know, we had the tentative support of the commission on the March 29th meeting. Now we've lost it with no explanation somehow. I'm just happy that we could get everybody in the room. Now, as far as abandoning Flynn Lane, that's a step that we haven't taken yet, but there was no sense in looking at abandoning the road until we could get the MDOT guys on board and see if we could even build the road. So I know that, you know, we haven't taken the steps to close or abandon Flynn Lane yet, but why would we do that before we know if we can even have the support of the state to build the new road? So, if anybody has any questions or concerns, my phone's always on and I'm always willing to talk. But yes.
Why don't you address a little bit about the speed of the traffic right now that goes between your house and the trail?
Let's let Wynn address that.
That's terrible.
I mean, well, that's, I think one of the things that Mary's trying to work on is getting more of a consensus of county road speed, because right now anything that's not posted is 70 miles an hour, just as it's saying on the highway, which is way too fast. Warren's got signs out there that says children at play, Well, I think there's another sign there, but no one pays attention. Literally, everybody is got objective to go from point A to point B and get to the highway and get down to Toston. So, like I've said a million times, putting that thing 90 degrees to the highway is advantageous of us to do so, for a safety reason, among everything else. We have quite a few crosses that are connected to Flint, so, I think we just slow people down and get them the F out of your front yard. And it's just the right thing to do. You sound like you got support of the state, and it's gonna save them some money in the long run. So, I don't know why they wouldn't do it for it. So.
If I may, Commissioners, with respect, I'd like to hear some concerns as to why you guys, let's have a discussion. We got everybody here. Everybody's in the room finally to sit down. Let's have a two-way discussion on this, and, if there's good reasons why this won't work, let's hear it, and, we got a bunch of open-minded people here, but we'd sure like to, let's just, I'm tired of all the misunderstandings and whatnot, and I'd sure like to just get this issue resolved. So, number one, so the state can go about building the road, which they're anxious to get their plans finalized. Let's just, let's have a discussion here.
I agree with you, Warren, and I think the state, there's been a lot discussion on this and everything, and I think this proposal would work real good. Safety-wise, safety for your house and family there, for one thing. Them cars come through there, I don't know how fast some of them are. And you got animals there, kids, and then a heck of a dust problem besides. And this idea of getting on the highway for you fellows with the semis, I'm assuming that's why most of you are here. That's a big issue.
You don't have to be in the semi, you can be in your car. You still can't, you pull up there, you still can't see what's coming from the north. So this is a good solution for it right here.
If you please, my name's Dallas Deal. I drive I'm not the contract holder, but I drive the school bus that is on that route. And anytime that I come to the end of that road, because I live on Flynn Lane, that's where the bus spends the night. And then I go to Toston and then proceed back. And every time that I come to that stop sign, I get my bus 90 degrees, but I don't know how many times I've caused a traffic problem because I gotta cross both lanes to go south, and somebody's trying to turn in, and they don't turn on at 6 Mile and come up, they're trying to stop. There's a big line of traffic, and it causes that kind of a problem as well.
I guess my only concern with that is how you're going to make the tie between Flynn and 6 Mile.
Mr. Dilger, I got obviously on the property right there, Rick Fisher, Rick is the project, was the acquisitions?
I'm a right-of-way agent.
Right, yeah, we talked about that, and basically, it would echo what's there right now. I will build a private road, not to county specs, but a passable road for farm use. It'll go across my property, so it'll come from the abandoned 6 Mile Road over to 6 Mile Road. It'll basically mirror what's happened since the thing was put in initially. I will mirror the cost of that, it'll be my private road. But I will offer, like I said many times, anyone that has a use for it. And I've actually talked to the residents that live on 6 Mile, if they need to come to Flynn Lane, they're welcome to use it too. All I ask is that they're respectful and whatnot. Because, as I stated, I don't have the exact numbers to state it, but I would honestly say 95% of the use that ties Flynn Lane to 6 Mile is us. Our farm equipment, our cattle use, I mean, we are the ones mainly affected by this. And we won't be affected by it because I can go across our private ground. And we talked about a controlled access road, but basically a cattle guard on each side. Maybe some signage, a private road or farm use only or something to make it clear that it's not a county road. But however, it's not gonna be a big no trespassing sign and stay off either. And I'm open to suggestions on how to, you know, if you're concerned about that, how we can improve it or make it more amenable to what you're thinking.
Mr. Chairman, Ann Rouser. I have a question. If this goes through, are you proposing, Warren, that Flynn Lane would turn and go out to the highway, and then the part from there to the existing highway now would be abandoned? Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yeah.
So that actually would not be Flynn Lane anymore?
Correct. Flynn Lane will go straight to the highway, north
Just,
of the village.
just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Nicole, you know, we've kind of been tossing this around and certainly feel for the safety of Warren's family, right there on Flynn Lane, and know that access right now to the highway is a hazard. Can you speak to connectivity just for,
Absolutely. I'm Nicole Brown. I'm the Community Development Director and Land Use Planner for the county. When the commissioners first asked me my thoughts on this, I put it into, I know it's not a subdivision, but I kind of put it into my subdivision bubble of how I look at subdivisions when they come forward. And we, myself and the planning board, always encourage connectivity between subdivisions. So this, on a grander scale, kind of threw some red flags at me, that you would be funneling all of that 6 mile traffic. I understand what you're saying, Warren, but I'm just going back to where my brain was, that you would then be taking, I believe it's 10 sections of ground that would be cutting off from any access to the north, other than to use a Forest Service road to the east or the highway. So I'm not a farmer and a rancher, so please forgive me, but I know those big trucks, you know, that may be coming down off of 6 Mile, would they then have to hit the highway at a slow rate of speed in the passing lane, which then, I'm sorry, in the driving lane, which would then force the slower traffic into the passing lane for those larger trucks to be able to turn onto Flynn Lane or to go further north. So to me, it didn't seem like good planning because of the lack of connectivity between all of that ground. And so back to your statement, Warren, that you would abandon that road, would you then suggest, well, my suggestion, I guess I'm gonna make this more as a statement, would be to close that road and create private use only.
That's fine.
But then you would have control of the private use, is that correct?
Yeah, that, like I said at the last meeting, when I was here, that's fine. You know, the verbiage, what we call it is immaterial to me.
Okay.
Closed or abandoned, for me, it's the same thing.
If it's abandoned, it would be obliterated. So I guess my suggestion would be to make it
Well, if it's
closed.
obliterated, it's just left, it's just walked away from.
It's just walked away from.
Yeah. And closed would be, for my intents purposes, basically the same thing. It'd still be me maintaining the room, which is fine. But as far as I don't understand the access to 6 Mile. How do we lose access to 6 Mile?
I'm sorry, the interconnectivity from 6 miles to the lands to the north.
Okay, but you've never had that.
Right. But, well, we've had it through the graciousness of your family, allowing that connectivity
Correct.
of Flynn to 6
But
miles.
it's been made very clear to me numerous times, I've been in past commissioners and whatnot, trying to get the county to maintain that road. And it was made very clear to me every time that that's your private road, that's your baby. So now you can't have it both ways. You know?
Sure.
So, but
Which,
I understand.
which now, you know, obviously through further investigation, finding that portion that connects Flynn to 6 Mile is not a county road, that you have allowed these folks to use it.
Well,
I suppose it
yeah.
wouldn't be changing, the use wouldn't be changing,
This
is
hasn't
that
changed,
correct?
and I've, you know, these guys have known for years that that's not a private, that's not a public road.
That's not public.
I mean, that's not a new development by any means, so.
And looking towards the future as well, you know, I know that all of you in this room, your hope is to continue promoting agriculture on those grounds. That may not happen 100 years from now. Obviously, they will have a whole different conversation. So, you know, just from a planning perspective, I didn't like it at first, the lack of connectivity. But if you're going to continue to allow this traffic, and we, you know, I would hope with.
Like I said, it wouldn't be, it'd be a big issue to me if it was a lot of traffic, but living there my whole life, and I know who uses the road and who needs to go from Flynn Lane to 6 Mile, and like I say, I tell you what, it's me, myself, or I, and our guys, and our crew, and, you know, and some other farmers, you know, once in a great while, but if we look
if we move it so we can get our tractors across north of the buildings and straight across the railroad tracks. I mean, as it sits right now, there's no farmer that needs to even do that. They're welcome to it, don't get me wrong, but I don't know of a single farmer right now that needs to make that corner on a routine basis, so.
Okay.
And if it gets, you know, someday, if God forbid we end up subdividing, which I'd be dead before I see it happen, but, looks to me like at that point, you're gonna re-look at everything anyway. And there's nothing says that this can't be modified at some point in the future to fit a subdivision. So, that's just where I'm at.
Okay, thank you.
The other miscommunication that I see here is the thought that that road of Warren's that goes in the ditch there right now can be used for semis and equipment. It really can't. You can't make that corner of the semi, you can't take an air seeder or a big tractor across there. The power pole and the culvert are too close. So the access is really for horse trailers, pickups, and cars.
Well, then the Department of Agriculture or Transportation is for this. The landowners here, you've got a lot of them right here in the whole area, and you're not getting one that stand up and is against this. Why is the commission, please tell us, why the reason is you're not just backing this and moving forward and giving the permission for Montana Department of Transportation to do this? Tell us, we elected you as officials. Tell us right now, instead of vote and come out in the paper, whatever. Tell us your concerns.
So Warren, I have a couple questions for
Yes.
you, if I may. So, the interconnectivity, I get what you're saying about, you know, your lifespan, what you've seen.
Yes,
I also hear what Nicole's saying about 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now,
yes.
marrying those two. So if the planned realignment, or excuse me, the proposed realignment, would you be willing to provide to the county some kind of a contract that you will not abandon your portion of that
Yes,
into perpetuity?
yes.
My reason for the question is we have another gentleman who had an agreement with his neighbors that they could use his road as a fire and emergency access. He's now closed it, it's gated. And what I'm trying to make sure is that 100 years from now, people won't look back at this commission and say, those idiots, what were they thinking? So if we have some kind of a contract from you that says that you will not abandon or close your access, because nobody else is gonna wanna use this if this goes into play, that we have that connectivity protected.
That doesn't scare me much, other than, number one, how do we control access as far as non-farm use? I mean, is it still, can I still control the access on who uses that?
I don't know, but I will say that if you have a Mustang or a Camaro coming up from 6 Mile, chances are they're not gonna want to use a dirt road, they're gonna wanna get onto the highway that's 70.
Can we just sign it like farm use only, something on that order?
I don't know.
Can I
Patrice.
ask for a point of clarification?
I'm sorry, Mike.
Are you talking about the proposed alignment? We would require that he sign a county road easement.
For,
Therese, we're
I
talking
guess
about.
I'm talking about the connectivity, so what I'm talking about, just wanna make sure, and what I was saying is, your cars and trucks that wanna go a speed, they're not gonna be interested in the dirt road, but something that's in the middle of a horse trailer and just a vehicle may want to. So I don't know if you can restrict that, but for the connectivity, if the county could have some kind of guarantee that we're not gonna lose that, then it would put us in a whole lot more comfortable position to say, yes, it's the losing that. So no, I'm just talking about this, Therese, not this at this point. No, I'm glad you clarified. So would you be willing, Warren, to do something like that? And Corey, is that a
I
possibility?
have some big concerns about that. If the county's gonna abandon that portion where Flynn Lane connects with the highway and goes through that yard, then it doesn't make any sense for there to be some kind of retained, really, it would be an easement is what you're asking for, from connecting the bottom of 6 Mile to what is no longer a county road. I mean, right now, it's on, we've heard, the majority of it's on his private property. And he's allowed that to happen by permission. So there isn't a public easement there now. I think it's gonna really make this thing messy if we're retaining some kind of an easement to a road that's been abandoned. When I say that, I mean the bottom portion of former Flynn Lane.
Commissioners, there would already be a connection, you just get on the highway, just like you do from Toston to Flynn Lane or Toston to down. There's already that connection.
The 6 Mile Road will always be there coming into the highway, is that right?
That's right,
Yeah.
it's always gonna be
So,
in the
yeah.
highway, so what's the difference?
There's no connectivity there now, so you're asking for a whole different thing, because there is none right now. That doesn't exist.
Yeah, there's no sense talking about it because it doesn't exist.
That's correct.
Right.
Now, it seems to me
That is
what I'm
correct.
hearing.
If I could just step in for a moment to show the commissioners something here. Really, all we are talking about is this road that goes from this intersection over to 6 Mile Road. That is private property, that belongs to Mr. Flynn. And so, as it stands right now, there is not connectivity there. So that would be something that you two would have to negotiate yourselves.
Yeah. I don't think most of the public knows that. I certainly didn't till our meeting on this. And what I heard in that meeting is that there's quite a process. Can you go through the process to create a new county road or to close or abandon a county road?
Absolutely, outside of the MDT portion of it, because I don't know how your process works, but in the county, if you want to close or abandon the road, you would complete a petition to either close or abandon, which they are two different things. Abandon means obliterate, close can be opened in the future. So just know that even though it would close it now, that doesn't mean forever. And then as far as creating a county road, you would also need to submit a petition to create a county road. So they both would go through the public process. You would complete a petition for whichever one of those 3 avenues you're choosing, opening, closing, or abandoning. You would bring that to my office and I would schedule time with the commissioners for a public hearing. Again, I don't know how that operates with MDT, with this process going on at the same time. I don't know how that would work. And also I want to say, Warren, at that last meeting, that was my first time discovering that was also a private road. So I do understand what you're saying about there's currently no connectivity. There appears to be.
Yeah.
And you've allowed people to connect, but.
So let me ask you this. I'm just gonna throw this out. So I totally get where you're coming from and absolutely support it. As far as, your need for people not to drive through your yard anymore and the safety of your kids. Can we talk about maybe some compromises? Again, I didn't know until now that this was private. I did not know at our last meeting. I know it was brought up, but it wasn't verified. And then today it sounds like it is it is for sure that this is your private ground. So, be that as it may, is there potentially a better option that maintains the connectivity that is so important to the county and to the folks that live off of 6 Mile and in that road, not only today but in the future, and also gets people no longer driving in your yard but maintains this road for your use? And what I mean is, I went to Nicole and our public works supervisor and our county engineer, and I said, give me some brainstorms, what are some compromises? And Sean Higley, the county engineer, came up with 2, I think, road rise that I shared with Teresa and Jeff. Are those even possibilities for discussion? Because it would solve the issue for the county, it would solve the issue for Warren, it is a different plan. Are you willing to discuss those?
We can discuss them, but it's gonna be tough because I think the first one was a relocation of his home.
Well, yeah, that one's off. Yeah.
The
idea was, well, we could have MDT move Warren's home.
Yeah, get the trailer off.
Right, so, no, the ideas, and I have a map here, is to go out on 6 Mile to where there's a road that you can see on Cadastral. So it's just to the east of the pivots, go up to the section line, turn and go west to Flynn Lane, and then north. The idea per the county engineer would be it's 1.75 miles of road to construct, If the county did the work, we could probably do it for half what MDT can. We would expect that MDT would pay for that. Over the canal would just need a foot spreader bridge, they're not expensive. I think the word I heard was entirely inexpensive. But that would solve everybody's problems. Also, if it was a right-of-way instead of an easement, it would be less expensive for MDT. And again, totally solves the problem for Warren and the county in connectivity. Is that something you guys would be willing to discuss or look into?
Yeah, well, that road to Dry Hollow would go across Bruce Seed Farm, a bunch of Bruce's semi.
You going to Dry Hollow?
No, it would all be Flynn Ranch. So this is Flynn, I'm sorry, this is so small. This is Flynn Ranch, so it would just be on the east side of your pivots, or Flynn Ranch pivots. And then on the section line, it would be on the Flynn side. This is Bruce Seed up here, but it wouldn't go up here. So it would just be on Flynn property. What do you think?
New road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, the benefits is it's helping you, Warren, to accomplish what you need. It's helping MDT get what you guys need quickly, and it's helping the county maintain that interconnectivity we thought we had, but do need.
What is the difference? You're simply moving from the proposed area half a mile north. That's all you're doing with what you just said.
No, we're actually maintaining the connectivity, interconnectivity that Nicole talked about.
How are you doing that? There's no connectivity as it is.
Okay, everybody thought there was, not everybody, you guys probably knew better, but I would say most people thought there was. So this is something that we have had as a community, as a county. So this is just an idea from the county engineer to actually maintain that interconnectivity that we really do. No, not to build. No, it isn't. So, let me finish, guys, come on, this is supposed to be, Warren asked for a civil two-way conversation, can we not have that? This is a compromise. If it turns out that it doesn't work for whatever reason, at least we took the time to discuss it, at least the county had something to put on the table for a discussion. Is that not what we're here for, to discuss?
How are you going to get all this right away?
I already brought that up. But let me correct the misnomer here. This is not just moving a road a little bit. I don't even know what was said. It's not for construction. What we're talking about is what Nicole just described. When you have a horse trailer that has to go out to a 5-lane highway, they're going out onto the driving lane. You've got a slow Sunday driver right behind him that now is going into the fast lane. It's 70 miles per hour. You all know most people drive 80. So now you've got some guy doing 80 that now has a slow driver in his lane. What we're talking about is a hazard for drivers to actually use the highway.
Laura, if I may.
So let me finish.
Okay.
All this was a proposal for conversation to actually create interconnectivity that takes people totally away from your house, totally away from your operation, doesn't cost you anything. MDT is probably saving money by this, and the county's willing to step in and do the work. This is a 3-legged stool. We're all working together for the benefit of the entire county, of the entire community. I guess I'd just like to know substantively, why and why not?
Mr. Chairman, I got
So,
a question.
60-foot easement, how much land is getting taken out of cultivation for that whole stretch?
A lot. It was farm ground the whole way.
It isn't. If you look at this map, it's actually the foothills just to the west of your pivots.
Laura,
What if you went to the
right above
foothill?
the pivots are real lines. You probably have an old map. Yep. You're going right through the middle of farm ground, all the way across.
I did cadastral today. It could be old. I think cadastral is usually 3 to 4 months behind.
Well, I'm telling you, whatever it shows there, that's farm ground the whole way, irrigated farm ground.
Where do you think I'm going to?
You're going across right above my pivots, like you say, over to the Flynn Bruce fence line and then down to Flynn Lane. You are in irrigated farm ground the whole way.
And then you gotta build a $500,000 bridge across the canal.
No, it would just be a foot spreader, so it's not that expensive according to the engineer
What's
who
a
builds
foot spreader
bridges.
when I go across with 100,000 pounds of cattle?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? There's another idea he came up with, and I'm gonna share that too then. How about just going to the west side of the canal and going up along the canal, then you're not going over it, connect with the section line to Flynn. It looks to me like that might take something out of production, whereas the other one I think you could debate, at least according to cadastral. All I'm doing is bringing out an idea.
I'll show you.
I got a question for the state now. This is gonna be 4 lane through there, right?
It is.
Okay, so if there's somebody pulling on, there's gonna be a sign. Huh? Oh, it's a 5? 5, okay, like it is on the other side of Tossin. Oh,
There's center turn lanes through the circle
there's
as well.
no be any problem with somebody pulling on with the horse trailer in the slow lane. And if they're going the other way, they've got that center one to get back into speed. Okay.
Laura, please listen to the taxpayers, people in this room. Almost everyone here has a CDL, they know about safety, they know about traffic. Your county engineer and this person does not know what these taxpayers know, and they don't pay what these taxpayers are paying without us. Listen to what they're saying. These people have common sense. They're not looking for different ideas. They're here to back Warren Flynn on this. So listen to them. We're in support of MDT. You guys are not. Why are you asking your people for ideas? You should have been asking us for ideas, not your people. These ranchers and landowners have been here forever.
I got one answer to you. I'm glad you brought that up on taxes. The amount of you farmers and ranchers there, you're probably paying, I'm guessing, close to $500,000 a year taxes. And your voice is damn important.
Thank you for that. One thing, I've heard you guys and have listened to your comments. I haven't interrupted anyone, so I think that's on the floor. But we also have the other taxpayers in the rest of the county and the ones who are gonna move in the next 10, 20, 50 years to also be thinking about your children, your grandchildren as well. So all this is can we have a discussion? Can we even talk about a compromise? If you guys are set on what you wanna do, then I guess that's where we're at. But, you know, it is who I am. I do look for compromises. I do look for other options, and I have here, I've worked with an engineer on it. We weren't brought into the discussion that brought up the proposed realignment. We do have a road supervisor who opposed it in 17, again a couple years ago, and then again 4 months ago. The engineer wasn't involved, county planner, solid public works, road foreman, or the commission. So this was just dropped on our desk literally a week ago. We didn't know anything about it. So, I do know you guys were working with Franklin, but it wasn't shared with Mike and I. So, Brandon, it wasn't.
We talked about that meeting that Warren came in here, it's right here in the minutes.
Right, that was one
That wasn't a
meeting
week ago.
no, it was in April or March 19th, right?
Yeah.
Right, that was one meeting, and you guys were gonna come back to us with a plan, you never did.
Excuse me, the plan was to, I left that meeting with the assumption that my next step was to talk to the state, the MDOT, see if they would still accept this proposal, and number 2, see if they would pay for it. That takes time, Laura.
Oh, no, I understand that, but you didn't engage us. We just got this dropped on us a week ago. That's it. But that was one of the issues then, too, was talking about, you know, the process, of going through the public process.
And I've talked to Dana many times, and his biggest concern, voiced to me, you guys probably know more, but was who was gonna pay for it. And Mike and I have talked about, you know, not wanting to see county equipment building this road, or the county have to pay for it. You know, you keep giving us these hurdles that, okay, well, if you can get this done, then maybe we can look at it, and then we jump that, and then we got a whole other set of hurdles, then we jump that, and then we get another set of hurdles.
And I hear what you're saying, but I don't think that's fair, because we only met once, so that there was only the one chance to really kind of get some of this parsed out. After that meeting, we all met individually with the different experts for the county,
Okay,
and never had an opportunity for another discussion until today. So, be that as it may,
okay.
all
now
I'm
here we
doing
are
with bringing
discussing.
out opportunities for compromise is just that. Is there a way to make sure that you get what you want and need, the county gets what it wants and needs, and MDT gets what it wants and needs? That's all I'm asking for here. And just a discussion. If after a discussion that's open and honest and respectful, we get to a point that, that won't work because of these reasons, then that's where we got to, and at least we discussed it. And it's on
Well,
record.
you know, on record, and discussing doesn't hurt anything, but, you know, when you look at building 2 to 3 more miles of county road,
The cost would be $200,000 to $300,000 according to the county engineer, including the bridge.
Why would we pay
So,
for that?
well, MDT would pay for it, but
well,
again.
yeah, but whoever pays
again,
for it
gives
still
us
pays
the-
for it. This is still taxpayer money.
Right, but it gives us a need that's answered, and that is interconnectivity.
What does he say?
Connectivity, which is not there.
Which you've never had.
Right.
You'd have
But,
to buy it.
yeah, you're right, we didn't have it, but we didn't know that. Most of the citizens that use Flint.
Well, your road engineer has known that for years, because I've argued with
But he wasn't engaged in this because he wasn't included.
Dana Rutherford.
Well, that's not
Dana
our
was
fault
really
that
opposed
you're
to
not
this.
up to speed.
You know what, you're
You
right,
should
but I'm saying,
engage the people.
look, guys,
that are
let's stay
here.
on topic. This is not, and look, let's
Mr.
attack the
Chairman.
person who at least looked at a compromise. Let's just have a discussion. That's
Well,
all
the
this
discussion,
is.
It seems like we've got a no-brainer. We wanna put a road north of his house, so we can shut off the road down there, which is a hazard. It just seems like it's a no-brainer to do it.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, maybe I can address the proposal that's been put before us. And again, with some discussion about the issues. The project, and I'd have to go back to the original need, what's the word? Purpose and need of the project. I don't believe was to make the connectivity that was talked about. The other thing is that the limits of the project that have been put into looking at survey, looking at right-of-way, looking at utilities, looking at environmental issues, has not been done on that new alignment, and potentially would cause some additional time and money to flesh that out, and we may not, it probably would not be, right now, would not be eligible for federal aid reimbursement for that work.
You mean the new route through the
Yes.
farm?
Yeah, because it wasn't in the original purpose and need for the project. I could double check that and make sure that that's the truth, but right now, that's what I know about your proposal is it is it is outside the limits of the original project. And so that we would have to, like say, do some due diligence in fleshing those out, and would have an effect on the opening of bids in a November timeframe. Because right now, we need to have all of the right-of-way in hand by basically August 1st. And adding this additional work is gonna be time-consuming, costly, or a cost. I wouldn't say it's a lot of, but we just have to go from there.
Is this realignment that you have proposed here, is that within the scope of your project?
It is and it isn't. It is from the standpoint of being able to get the traffic from going through Warren's property. And we feel we've got enough survey to be able to address any environmental concerns associated with that. But I really would want to make sure that's a true statement with Phil. I think it will require some additional, but not to the extent that the second, or the proposal for the relocation that's, the second proposal.
I think it's fair to say that we would need a little bit more topographical information, so we need some survey to make the tie-in to Flynn Lane at that location. We didn't map it for wetlands. There are often enough wetlands associated with irrigation ditches, so we'd have to gather that information. But that, and double check with the cultural resources surveyors and find out, make sure that they believe that they covered that corridor.
So if I can ask, how much time is that gonna add to your project then, if you have to go back and redo your environmental analysis?
For what's being proposed, I think it's a lot less significant than what's being, the second proposal to go further would involve a lot more, for the 1.6 miles of, is that what was about 1.5 miles? Whereas the additional right now is only 900 feet that we would be looking at, so, go ahead.
Yeah, I think what I would comment is the department has Morrison Merrily on a schedule to deliver our final set of plans in mid-August. And I think if we do this it'll be a push, but we can get it done in August. And I think in terms of